Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me say it is a particular honor to serve as ranking member on this committee with you, and it is also a particularly high honor to serve on the committee with two former ranking members and chairman of this committee, Senator Cornyn and Senator Hatch, as well as the ranking member of the entire committee, Senator Grassley. All of us were rightly horrified by the tragedy in Newtown, Connecticut. To see young children senselessly murdered takes your breath away. Let me say to each of you who has come here today that are the victims of crimes of violence, my heart goes out to you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for standing for your lost loved ones. I will tell you, I have spent personally much of my professional career working in law enforcement to, number one, prevent these horrible crimes of violence, and number two, to ensure that anyone that carries them out is subject to the very strictest punishments. And I am hopeful that the fervor that we see on this Judiciary Committee hearing for standing up for victims of crimes of violence will carry over to issues other than gun control. I am hopeful that that same fervor will be present when judicial nominees are here who have a record and history of allowing those who have committed violent crimes to walk free. I hope that same fervor on a bipartisan basis will be present when we're talking about how to ensure that the laws and resources are there to prevent violent criminals from carrying out their horrific crimes and to ensure that every one of them receives a fair and just punishment. In my view, the divide on this issue is fairly straightforward. The focus of law enforcement should be on criminals, and we should be unstinting in protecting communities. Many of the communities that each of you has suffered losses in are communities that sadly law enforcement has been failing. And we should be working to fix that problem. At the same time, I think we should continue to respect and protect the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens. It is often lost in the debate over guns that the Second Amendment is part of our Constitution. It is part of the Bill of Rights. It is indeed, as Justice Joseph Story put it, the palladium of liberty, a fundamental protection of every American. And in my view, stripping the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens does nothing to prevent criminals from carrying out violent crime. And indeed, the overwhelming weight of the empirical evidence demonstrates that when the rights of law-abiding citizens to protect themselves, to protect their homes, to protect their families are taken away, that violent crime increases, that citizens defenseless are more vulnerable to violent criminals. For that reason, the two cities with the strictest gun control policies in the country, Washington, D.C. and Chicago, both of which for years had effectively total bans on firearms ownership, so it could not be possible to have a stricter policy. Both have sadly suffered from some of the highest crime rates and highest murder rates, notwithstanding those laws. And I would suggest in significant part because of those laws. If you look in contrast to jurisdictions that have protected the constitutional right to bear arms, you have consistently seen lower crime rates, lower murder rates as individual citizens are able to protect their family. The Supreme Court's decision in Heller and McDonald were landmark decisions. They concern the question whether each of us is protected by the Bill of Rights, because the position of the cities of D.C. and Chicago in that litigation was that no individual has any right whatsoever under the Second Amendment. The position of the litigants in those cases, I would suggest, was quite extreme. Today we are discussing what are the limits on that right, because the Supreme Court made absolutely clear that the Second Amendment is a constitutional right of every American. And I would point out that constitutional rights are designed to be protected not just when they're popular, but especially when passions are seeking to restrict and limit those rights. And so I look forward to this hearing underscoring the vital protections of the Second Amendment to every American.